The same as last week, of course. It's still just assignment number 3. That basically is, again, for some reason, sometimes it does this and it reverses it on me. I don't know why. Just remember that in the project description itself, it's in the correct order. There are, of course, these videos, which will be taken down at the end of today and replaced with today's Zoom meeting. There are additional videos, more pen tricks. I'm going to talk about some other cool pen tricks as well. Illustrator image trace, or what's called live trace in the live bucket. That's a nice little video, which I'm going to go and try to show you on my own. And again, that one assignment version I'm looking for, which is a die cut sticker version using the path offset, which I will kind of recap again today as well. So before I go any too far, too deep, I kind of just put a little list here that kind of talks about some of the things we're going to cover today. So I'm going to talk more about these pen tool tricks, or how to work with just the pen tool with a really cool stroke only and adjusting the profile of that stroke, and how we can basically do kind of the effect that we saw there with the blob brush in creating content. But last week, of course, I showed you how to deal with just basic shapes, work with a single color and deal with the shapes. But what if you actually want to do more of an illustration style, kind of something like a black outline with fill colors and that kind of thing? So that's what I kind of go over today. I'm also going to talk about the live image trace. Again, the easy button that if you have good, clean artwork, let's say created with, like, say, a Sharpie or a Micron pen, how you can, you can work with that to actually just use an easy button to automatically vector it. And then you can, release, ungroup it. And then oftentimes you have to right click and release compound path to be able to fill or color it. I'll also talk about how to develop patterns. Patterns could be something as simple as creating a watermark, or if you look at a lot of websites, they have backgrounds that are patterned, and other purposes for just that. Even posters and t-shirts often use patterning. I'll talk about how to use a photo or work with a portrait or a photograph, and how to actually do a vector trace of that to create those limited color Illustrator kind of avatars or Illustrator vector drawings. I'll talk a little bit about this idea of what's called Fibonacci. And Fibonacci is the high math technique of that all things in nature basically follow, and how a lot of logos these days are actually using that, or other graphics, icons, are using the Fibonacci technique to actually create graphics. And finally, I'm going to show you, okay, there are sites out there where you can start your own storefront. You can actually, instead of buying other people's artwork on your t-shirts or your cell phone cases or your bags or your hats, whatever, you can actually go to some of these websites out there that allow you to upload your artwork and even give you, very similar to what we've done here with putting it on top of a t-shirt. They do that for you, but you just choose what merchandise, and then you can even start selling or buying your own content. So as we did before, I'm just going to start off with a new file. And again, it's just, I like to do this just because I like always starting with that large file size just to work. So I'm going to do a 1711 and a single artboard and whatnot, just like I've done before. I'm going to leave the name off for now, just because kind of last week I went over that. All right, so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about what we can do in terms of advanced, just using the pen tool to do some advanced pen work. So let me go ahead and place a sketch. I want to place, I'm looking for something a little more in the illustration world here. Okay, so I have this drawing here of this fish. And again, it is kind of a logo, but it's more of graphic based instead, or an illustration based instead of a graphic based logo. Lock it and make a new layer. And as I said, I'm just going to use pen techniques today. So I'm just going to find, again, doesn't matter which pen I use. Just remember, I can always add anchors and make sharp corners. So whether I use the traditional pen and just make a lot of click, 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 clicks, and then use the option there in the object path simplify, or I can just use, actually, I guess I have to do 2 clicks there, like these curvature pens. Okay, let me go ahead and do a default black stroke with no fill. In fact, maybe just so I can see this a little better, let's go ahead and just choose a bright color. Remember, colors really don't matter here. There we go. Release, reselect, properties. And I'm going to actually click on the stroke word. This will allow me to give it some weight. So I guess we can see that now. And I'm going to play around with these profiles. Okay, so I can get more interesting profile with weights and values. And again, I can even swap that to go the opposite direction. I'm going to try to go clockwise, left to right when I create here, so that my profiles always have a light weight to a heavy to a lightweight again. And you can basically see what I've kind of created there. Okay, so let's go ahead here. I'm going to go ahead right about, I'll start right here at the bottom of his lip. And deselect there. And watch how cool this is. I can even select this stroke that I just built, use my eyedropper tool and say, yeah, but make it the appearance of that. So it's giving me the same weight, but then of course I need to go ahead and use that basically more artistic kind of curve to it all. Go ahead and move that over. Deselect, reselect, weight, properties, profile. Now, this is often a common issue, though, that a lot of people make is they think that they can just use these little tools like this. Oops, okay, I got to be careful now because you see when I selected that path, it's selected to continue with what I had. So I might actually want to just come off this a little bit and then move that anchor point later on. And again, I'm not going to close it off just yet. Deselect, reselect, eyedropper tool, stroke, profile, and choose that interesting path. But remember, I couldn't select this path, so I need to come in here and choose the endpoint by the direct select tool and just move that to get the overlap. See that? I'm going to do that down here to this guy, and I'm just going to move that till I get the overlap. Select. You see it's actually continuing because I did select previous curve. So it's continuing with that path. If I didn't want that to happen, I would make sure that I don't, and I can split that. Or let's just actually have some fun here. I'm going to select this point right here, and I'm going to split this into two by just hitting delete. But then take these and move them back so that there is overlap again. See, I want that overlap. Now this is where I have it. Now that I'm coming down to this edge here, remember I was going clockwise. So I'm just going to click here. And watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go right through that fin there. And whenever we want sharp corners here, right, I can hit the button twice. Deselect, reselect, eyedropper tool, click, stroke, and again, a profile. Let's do this one here. Again, I don't want to click here and overlap necessarily, so I'm just going to move a little. Oops, it still wants to do it, so let me move it over here. And we're just going to, again, repeat a lot of those processes to get the right profile. Go to my direct select tool here. and move this where it needs to be to get that overlap. So we always want to make sure we're overlapping our point areas there to get the good, clean style of all this. Watch, I'm going to do this little line here in the lip. Again, I'm going to select out here. Eyedropper tool, stroke value, and change my interesting profile. You could even find other profiles online, which are pretty neat too. Grab this point that I had to go out here with and just back it up. So again, it is overlapping. So I'm just going to repeat this process. I can see where I don't have overlap right there. Slide that into overlap. You really want to have that overlap. Now here's an interesting factor where, again, I went right through that. That's fine, because I can always, when I convert this to a solid, when I convert this back to a shape, remember, that would be the using that object path outline stroke tool. That will become a shape, and then I can use my eraser to just get rid of that. Okay. And I'm just going to deselect. Let's go ahead and just do another one here. This is a good, yeah, I could actually, let me get rid of that point. I don't need that point. And I could even do it this way too, where I can select both of these, right tool, eyedropper tool select, and with both of them selected, go to the stroke and change that to be that kind of style. So we don't have to do it each individual time. And I don't know why. So I forgot to do my annotate. Realize that now, and I wish this were, I see it, there's a chat. Let's see. Quick question on why we have such a long due date for Illustrator assignments. Because Illustrator is usually the software where, like I said, people have the least experience. It's usually the software people get the most confused and frustrated with. And so I kind of want to give you guys ample time to kind of get a chance to grasp it, to do better quality work. In a lot of classes I teach, especially for those that are like graphic design or digital illustration courses, Illustrator is the software that most courses start with. They start in Adobe Illustrator, not Photoshop. So that's why we kind of deal with it like that. Deselect, just put in some of these wispy things. I guess they call them scales. Remember, we can always take this back and tell this to be an anchor, to be a sharp corner. And let's just do this eye here. You see, I'm going to go past it again, so I can select this guy and back it to get the overlap. This eye, this here. I'm just holding shift to select multiple things. Eyedropper there. Properties, stroke, and profile. Last but not least, let me just get this little mouth in here. Now here, I might use the pen tool just because A little bit more detail in there. And you see again how I'm getting that overlap. This looks a little wacky. Oh, I may have to. There. Select, select. Eyedrop tool, select that. Properties, profile, stroke, profile. Maybe I'll actually even make them just a little less weight. Kind of detailed, and I want to keep that open. See, I don't want that to shut. All right, so let's see what we have so far. Now again, I can come in here and add that later on. You see, I've got some eyebrows I can add in over top and some of these circles or other details, right? Because they can always be added over top. The point I want to make here is, right now, these are all strokes, right? Select them all. They're all a stroke, not a fill. And remember, why don't we want strokes? It's because if I want to think I'm going to live with that and think I'm going to shrink it down at another time, see, bad news. Don't want to do that. But I still want that outline look. So what I can do, select all of them, object, path, outline stroke. I'm back to my properties here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically unite these, make them all united as a solid shape. Okay. Now I could come back in here and find, like I said, where I failed to kind of clean this up. Just going to use my eraser now to take out that edge. Now, if you say, oh, well, you got too many of these points in here now, well, again, you can take some of those out. Okay, and get that kind of like sandpaper, just sand it back down and get it nice and even again. All right, kind of like the level I've got there done so far. Now, go ahead and take this guy for now. Go ahead and just move it out of the way so we don't have to, actually, rather than doing that, let's just hide our sketch so we can see what we have. And you see, it is a fill. It is not a stroke. You go ahead and just tell it to be a black fill, right? And if I were to copy and shrink this down, we no longer have that problem. See? It scales uniformly. Nice and clean. So how on earth then do we get this to so that we can, this is the only way, if I would have left this as a stroke, let me just go back a second before I convert it to a solid. Run out of undos already. Oh, that's right. Copy, and then let's go to Shift Control Z. Get it back to where I cleaned it up and turned it black. There we go. So I copied it so I had it in the clipboard because I wanted to paste it now. And you see again, this is the one that is just made up of strokes, right? Not fills. And this is the one where I actually did that path offset and unite to get a fill, not a stroke. Because a lot of people are like, they'll come here and they'll be like, oh, I want to color this now. And they'll choose a color. And you see what happens. See? It doesn't fill properly because these are not united. And there's no way of uniting them. See? It's impossible to get a good, clean fill of it all. Not to mention, if I look at this piece, you see, now I could use that, believe it or not, if I were to object arrange and send it to the back. See, and now it's underneath that edge there. But then I got to figure out how to fill this in, which is just, again, it's not going to fill because this and this are not connected. Whereas this piece here, because I object path, outline the stroke, and then united using the uniting tool, it's now a fill. Watch how cool this is and how easy this is. Now watch, I'm going to right click on it, ungroup it, because that actually separates all these pieces that are in here floating around. And then I'm going to right click and release the compound path. You see what that does now? Right click, release the compound path. And what it has done now is it's basically released the inside and from the outside. Which in a nutshell means all I got to do now to color this is pick a color. I know, let's go with a goldfish. Okay. So it's kind of like, again, it's kind of like the coloring book effect here. And I know I'm not following any protocol here for palette, but bing. So look how quickly I was able to get that to basically fill. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this guy now because we don't need it. And let's go ahead, turn my layers back on just so I can see what I'm going with. And if I want to, I could even select all this, guys, go to my properties, watch, change my opacity here to being like an overlay or something to see through it, to see other details, or a multiply even. See that? Because I've got all that cross hatching, and that's pretty cool. Now, again, that cross hatching isn't going to work if I'm living in the world of a vector file, because, right, it's not there. It's just letting me see through it. But if I wanted to use Illustrator to show, to then save as a PDF where it didn't need the vector, I'm just using these art tools, well, then it is pretty cool to kind of work like that. Again, properties, opacity. I'm just going to switch back to normal here. Oops, wrong tool. Now I can start to think about, again, what about highlights and shadows? So let me go ahead and just lock that layer, but make it invisible so that I can make a new layer here. And let's go ahead and just make an eyeball here, right? Might as well just use a good old fashioned shape here. And again, now I can even take out some of the points to clean that up. And again, what's my eyeball here going to be? I don't know. Let's just make it quickly here a dark blue or something like that. And let's just put, while I've got that, I'm going to use my blob brush now. Go ahead and see, make it round, smaller, still too big. Actually, I'm going to use this. Watch this. I'm going to put it down here. Switch to my eraser now. And start thinking about maybe some detail elements here. Right? Funny when you try to get the brush small enough and you just can't. All right. And you can see, oops, right? According to the sketch, not exactly right. Let's go ahead and select these guys. I'll go ahead and just group them, Control G. Go ahead and add one vertex there or one point here so I can just do something like that. And the cool part here is, right, if that's the eye and it's currently in this layer, I can always then come over here and I'm looking for that right there. So all I really need here is to take that and select where I need it to be and object arrange, send to current layer. See, whoops, I need this to be beneath it. Oh, there we go. Where's this one? I guess that'll work for me. Just trying to get that to be a little more smoother. There we go. Whoops, I want all of it. There we go. Okay. Just going to select that circle just to soften that edge. Now these snap functions you can see you can customize it if you go into properties, but actually when you zoom in, they give you more accuracy. See, it wouldn't let me do that because of the snap function that was there when I was zoomed out. When you zoom in, it lets you get, okay. So we have it pretty much here as far as like using those pen tools, finding better ways. Like I said, I can always come in here and right. And again, I want that to be no fill, black stroke, properties. Zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Stroke, let's go ahead and just use that teardrop effect, but I'm going to reverse it. Or actually, I'm going to use that right there with a round corner. See? Thicker. So even this little detail like that. Again, object, path, outline stroke. Let's go ahead and transform, reflect a copy. I guess that'll work to get these additional details. Now, this is where I can start to really have some fun here, though, because like I said, just living it like this is just half the battle. So let's go ahead and lock those layers. I'm going to make a layer here, just like we did in Photoshop. I'll call it highlight. And another layer here. I'll call it shadow. Let's start with highlights. So I'm just going to choose white. And this is where I can really start to have some fun. Make this just be a little bit bigger than just that. Okay, so I've got this little blob brush here, and I'm just going to figure out, all right, well, just with this blob brush, I'm going to kind of define where my highlights might be. And just using this blob brush, whether I just use it as a blobby or I physically make a shape with it. Like here, I can even just use a little bit of a blob. Or I could literally just fill it in like that. So this is about the only way you can really kind of get to that painterly kind of quality like we showed inside of Photoshop. And if I go outside of it, I'm basically just trying to stay above, above that black outline. So I'm going to use a blend mode here to work. Like so. Pretty simple. I can then select these that are more, shaped to individually. Let's ungroup it. See, and group it. Release the compound. And then I can choose, do I want the inner or do I want the outer shape for this highlight? See, select, release. I'll get rid of the middle one. I typically get rid of the middle one, the inner compound path. And that was the figure 8 idea, right? Where we were doing the releasing the compound of the 8 to then make adjustments to it and then make it again a compound. Okay, I think that's it. All right. Now I want to select all that white I just put down. I could hold shift and select it all. I actually have nothing else on here, so I could just put a box around it to select all that white, or select and I wish this would, I don't know why this, oh, there we go. That was easy enough. Yeah, let's just select one white, select same, fill color, and it selects them all. And if I want to, I can even group, or I can unite all that white together. I can go back into my layers here, or the properties rather, and change the opacity of all that highlight. See that? Or again, play around with the blending modes. Multiply doesn't do anything. How about overlay? I kind of like overlay. You see how it affects it a little bit. Or one more neat thing with this, watch this, effect, stylize, feather. Now that's going to stay a vector shape, but it's going to feather the edges of all those shapes. See? Let me make it a little bit smaller than that. Let's say 7. And look how cool that looks. Now this one, the feather was so much, it pretty much took out this little portion down here. But that's because it's affecting those highlights all together. So it's just, they're subtle, they're not harsh. Go ahead and lock that. Let's try doing a shadow. And again, I could even add a little bit of color instead of just normal black. Back to my blob brush here. Go ahead and zoom in a little. Because I'm using those blending mode techniques, it's shadowed, but not harshly shadowed. And it's the shadow elements are fairly see-through. So I can go right over the black there without having to worry about making a harsh mistake. I went a little out of bounds there. It's not that big of a deal. I just think this is just a really neat kind of technique of adding a little bit of light and shadow. But if it's too much, we could, because it's on its own layer, we can control it a little bit. A little bit of shape, just like that. Watch, I'm going to go right over the edge of the eye just to give that little bit. And I can fill it just by dragging that brush around. Fill it in with the brush. I'm painting shape. Or I can release. Okay. All right, let's just say that's good enough for the shadow. Now I can select them, ungroup, release compound, get rid of these middle pieces, right? See these extra pieces that when we release it, ungroup, release compound, oops. Release compound, go, that, see, let's get rid of that shape that it gave me in there. Release compound. All right, so now we have all the shadows in there. And again, looks kind of awful there. Well, select, same fill color. Now that's selected all that dark red. Go ahead and I can unite it. I can either play around with the opacity shift, see that? Or change its blending mode. Now it's dark. Remember, the other one worked with an overlay because it was light over color. If I do a multiply, that didn't really do anything. Let's try overlay again. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that. See? So you can really start to create a lot of that. And this is where, if you've seen like the artwork that they've done with like, I don't know, look how Mickey Mouse has changed over the years, right? Oh, what did I forget to do? I forgot to feather. Let's go ahead and just put, again, a stylized feather on. Maybe make this a little less than 7. See? And now look at that subtlety. I love that, adding that extra detail in. Now, again, if you're going to be doing this for, like, say, a sign that's vinyl cut where you're not going to get the feather, it takes absolutely nothing to go back into the properties here, see, and just trash the feather. And now I can actually cut that shape out as a semi-opaque shading value to go over top of and create that layering effect of three-dimensionality of shadow and light over top of the original basic orange fish. So I could keep going here, guys. I'm just going to stop there because I think it's a pretty cool result there of what you can do with this. And you see, whoops, make sure in my layers, I unlock it all. See, so now I've got all of them together. Now that they're all together, I can group it. Okay. And that gets me, again, I love to look at it out here in the gray instead of on the white to really see what it needs. Because in reality, if that need to be a white eyeball, I would want to cut that out of that eyeball. Or better yet, you know what this needs. It needs, I'm just looking at the original sketch. It needs a little blue right here. Release, delete, see? Effect, feather. Okay. No, overlay doesn't work. I like multiply. Now remember, I grouped it, so by double clicking, I'm now in the subgroup, which shows right here. So I can easily then just cut, paste, place it where I want to be, and then get back out of that group. And now it's all part of that group. Pretty neat stuff. I don't know why his teeth turned yellow, but oh well. I guess I chose that. I should have chosen a bit of a white. Again, easy. Like I said, it's a group. I don't have to ungroup. I can just double click, get to the color, change and alter it, and then back out again. Watch how simple even this is. See, that's going to be the same value. I just need to add the feather to it to get that little bit of shading. See? And I can keep going, guys. I mean, I could keep adding more texture and more value. You know, I'm just doing one value of light, one value of dark right now. But imagine if I actually said, oh, no, let me go in and add more color or, you know, or more details to this. So pretty cool stuff there again with advanced pen technique there of using some of those profiles, cleaning it up. And like I said, that's worth its money right there, if nothing else. But even here, again, I've got all one group here, but I could easily come in. I'll go with my blob brush because I'm just looking at it here. And let's see, let's just choose a size. Okay, and let's, what the hell, we'll go with a blue. Click. Larger. Larger. So again, sometimes it's just working smarter, not harder. Do know I need to come in here though and get rid of that little bit of blue there. Okay. Oops. Let's make sure I select it. Go. And again, select same, fill color. Now be careful because it did select the teeth and the eye that time. Let's go ahead and take these weird guys here. Unite them. I'm not going to feather them. What the hell? Let's play around with something different. Let's come on down here and let's say difference. No. Exclusion. No. Overlay. Screen. Yeah, all these different, you know, lighten. Kind of like that. Just using a lighten. Okay. And how we can add, you know, some of those spots to it all. I can change the color. Right, really quickly here. So let's go with the purple. Color, see there are all different ways of getting this. There, I kind of like that. See, adding more of that texture element or even feathering. I'm not going to leave that in there though. All right, so here's what's cool about this, right? So we've got this neat thing. Now remember our little agenda here, okay? Now, before I get to the image trace, I'm going to show you patterns just because we have this pretty cool little guy here. And remember, I could also just do color variations and change colors to this very quickly by just saying, you know, oh, I've got one fish. I'm going to move it over here just so we can see it. Okay, he's one big group. Let's go ahead and copy and paste. And this one, I'm going to change into a little different shape. Okay, maybe I will reflect it. Now, really, all I really need to change here is the orange value. Oops. To give it a totally different color. Okay. Oh, see, before I did that, when I selected the orange, select same fill color. Now it's selected all the orange. Okay, now didn't give you the lip. But that, you know what? I'll leave it with a No, I want to give it a blue lip. Okay. So I got 2. I could even do a 3rd if I want to. Copy, paste. And let's just make this be little guy. Select same fill color. So we can zoom in more to get that orange. You can see when you get in here, sometimes you got to really zoom because I've got those, or here we go. Leave those layers locked for that individual group. And let's just do, all right. Out, back out. All right, so I've got these 3 guys, right? I'm going to select them all and group them all. Okay, and watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go File, New, and it doesn't really matter here, you know, what you're grabbing a new one here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste it in here. Oops, that was the one. Copy and paste. Okay, and these do not need to be big because I'm making a pattern, and because I have not used any strokes, they're very small. Okay. Now, watch how cool this is. Object, pattern, make. Okay, and you see it's giving me a sample of different patterns. So I got new pattern, I could grid, brick by row. I can change the brick offset percentage, 3/4, 2/5, kind of like that right there. Maybe make it just a little wider apart. 3 by 48, a little more space between them. Okay. I can even do copies. Right now it's just doing 5 by 5. Dim copies is temporarily giving me a temporary dimming of 70%. But if I like my pattern here now, this is what's cool. Close that and say done. So if I'm like making something here, right, and I'm doing this, now all I need to do is, oh wait, hold on 1 second. It has loaded that pattern. See, loaded that pattern now to the swatches. Here it is right here. Can't quite see it here, but if I tested it out on any bit of, on anything, see, it gives me my pattern. And what's cool is because there's no white background, it's actually a transparent pattern. So all I need to do here is, well, let's just do it again. Okay. Take this. Now I could even take the swatch, right? Duplicate swatch and now paste it into our here. Okay, it won't let us paste it. So that's where I was going to just take this little thing with the pattern. And by pasting it in here, we now have that swatch in the pattern here, which will allow me now to, you know, scale with it. Or if I want it to be that size, like let's say instead of a PDF, right, with a white background, I want to basically drop this into the whole background and maybe just have it watermarked, right? Isn't that neat? And so you see this a lot, guys, in a lot of, like I say, websites, or maybe I want to make bed sheets with my graphics here. So I could literally come here and put the sketch next to the original sketch next to the result. And I think that's pretty cool that you can actually, now this might be an issue here of just There, see? Doing something like that. And even this kind of can be played with a bit. So patterns, very cool stuff that you can do with this Illustrator here that automatically will build patterns for you all. Plus these advanced pen tools, pretty badass. All right. Next then, what about this idea of a live image trace? All right. Let me go ahead and remove all this. Okay, and my layers. Let's go ahead and take out the shadow, take out the highlight, and just get back to the default as if we were getting started on. So there's this tool called the image live trace. Now it doesn't show up here until we actually get something to image live trace. Okay, so I'm going to play with a couple different versions here. Let's start off with that same old fish, right? Now they've used an ink pen to do this, but obviously it's not very clean, meaning the line quality. The word big fish is not bad. It's been filled in pretty solid. But the rest is pretty rough. So if I go to properties and I scroll down the bottom, you're going to see this option called image trace. Converts an image into tracing object. Click that. Now I've got options here like colors, shades of gray, sketched art. Believe it or not, the best one to use is black and white logo. But I'll use the sketched art here just to show you. And I click that option. And you see what it does is it reads it and tries to convert what is a black line into a vector. Now I can hit this option box here that allow me to do things like more or less threshold, do that, more paths or less paths, more corners or less corners. It's kind of like the smooth path option. Even noise, adding more noise or decreasing noise. I can even tell it to ignore all the white, which basically says because it's scanning this on a white piece of paper, it's reading the white as a vector shape as well as the black as a vector shape. But I'm going to leave that white on for a second. And then we hit expand and ungroup. And I'm going to back out of here so we can see under the gray exactly what it gave us. You see it has vectored it. So it tried to trace any value of black into individual vectors. The problem, of course, is it wasn't a good drawing. It was a great sketch. It was a great concept, but it wasn't good content. All right. What if I try a different image? Let's try, okay, this is just something I grabbed in. Let's just back that off to about 8. So here you see this is a Sharpie marker, but it was a dry Sharpie marker. See that? So the line quality is there, but it's not very good. Okay, now I'm going to stay zoomed in because I'm going to select it, go to the bottom of my properties and image trace. And this time I'm going to say black and white logo, even though it's not a black and white logo. And you see here, it was able to kind of correct some of that error, but in other places, it's still giving me a lot of kind of squiggly, not very good, clean, think coloring book quality lines. Now I can increase my threshold, which will give me heavier black lines. I can decrease my paths, which again, like smoothing, you see smooths that out and gives me less chatter, okay? Or I can play with the noise factors here to get more or less noise. I kind of like less noise because I want this to look like it's clean vector graphic. And again, I can even say ignore all the white. For now, I'm going to leave that alone. So once again, we expand, ungroup, you move it over here so we can see what it gave us. Get rid of that fish. So you see, it scanned the white. And if I move that out of there, you see exactly what that is. That is the page that has been converted into a vector, which I don't know if you're doing like, again, some kind of like stencil art and you need to cut this out of vinyl so you can, spray paint, like think Banksy or something, that might work for you. But it also gave me this inner part. So I'm just going to select that inner part of white. See? And now, watch this though. Just remember we scanned it or live traced it as black and white logo. So if I go to color this chicken now, you're going to see it's going to give me grayscale. Well, that just means even though black and white is the best way to live or image trace something, we have to come up and we have to edit the colors back to a CMYK or back to an RGB, which you see it isn't even giving me right now. Now, if I choose this to color, it does it in color. So that's where, like I showed you guys last week, utilizing that blob brush, I used it today as well. You can see what this is basically made up of, see? This is basically giving me the image trace of the black line work and the image trace of the white shapes, each as individual shapes. Now, if you tell it, oh, whoops, a second. Get back before I expanded it. There we go. But if I get this to the point where I'm now option and say ignore all the white, you see it's going to give me just the black line information, expand, ungroup. See, so now it's just giving me, go ahead here in the edit and convert it back to a color. But now if I want to fill this just like our blob brush or what I did today with the stroke, and then, offsetting that stroke and then having to combine all that stroke. If I want to do it that way, I need to release the compound, and that will now allow me to come in here and do my color. See? And again, it's basically, like I said, oops. Let's try that again. Release. Just trying to not select those things. See? What makes that up is instead of dealing with outlines, it's a shape controlling the outlines. See that? And it's converting all those shapes into, or all that into shape. So the image trace is pretty neat because you can do a lot with it, but let me show you what you don't want to do with it, or at least kind of like with that video cover. Let's say this kitten. Oh, I'm going to vectorize this kitten, right? Sounds awful, but right? So we come down here and we're like, oh, image trace. Oh, let's do a low fidelity photo. You see what it does? It doesn't know the exact shape. So really, even though, yes, I vectored it, it's not a good vector, okay? It doesn't work well because it's guessing at the shapes. So it's just, making a shape, but it's kind of destroying it in the process. And you can see here, I can do 6 colors. See, 16 colors, nope, that still doesn't do it. What about a high fidelity photo? No, it still doesn't really do it. I mean, it kind of does it, but that's just sloppy and really doesn't serve any purpose, right? Why would I high fidelity vector a photo? I mean, maybe if I was doing some kind of, poster work, but there's too many colors here to even do in a print. So, silhouettes. So there is purpose. Look at that. That's just bizarre looking. There are some things we can do, but you can't just live trace everything. Let's do another one here. Lace. Like I like playing around with, again, if you're already doing stuff with Sharpie marker, okay, come on down here, image trace. Again, I'm only wanting black and white. I don't need, right, because it's a silhouette kind of style. I only need black and white. And I really don't even need white. So I'll get rid of, ignore the white, expand, ungroup. But now I need to come in here and get rid of all this junk that came in with it in the scan. Okay. Even take this really quickly here, right? Clean that up. And I've even got the signature in here, which is kind of neat. Let's go ahead and group it. And you see how we have, right? Imagine screen printing this, and you could see what it would look like on whatever t-shirt it went. And that's just using single color value or making a pattern out of it, right? But it starts with a good Sharpie marker version or variation of it. Let me see, do I have any other ones here? Let me just quickly see. I like to play around with this because it is such a powerful, version. Oh, let's see. Let's go with this, right? So let's say you've already got some good, clean artwork that you found, and you want to quickly, like coloring book style this, right? Properties, image trace. Again, I can go with black and white. Okay, expand, ungroup. Go ahead and get rid of the white border. So I can take this now, make sure we convert back to a color because we did black and white, and very rapidly come in here. And there's even a way here, if there's a paint bucket option, went to one of these tools here. But there is a live paint tool where you select it all. Let me see, maybe it'll let me find it. Color? No. Where are you at? It's here somewhere. But it's basically a live paint tool, which gives you like a paint bucket, and wherever you hover it, you can quickly add color. It's in the video that I included. Here, see, all quick like, I can come in here and go bang, color. Okay. And really quickly do a coloring book style kind of thing with a found, this was just something I found online. Use this to offset. Even here, you take all that black away, you get a pretty cool, you select same, fill color, delete, and that's kind of cool for, again, a t-shirt where you're live tracing, but you're using the negative, not the positive. You're using the negative, the white, rather than the positive line work, which we originally had, which was the black line. And the last one I got here in terms of live trace image tracing can even be like maybe you're a t-shirt graphic designer and you're like, okay, so you see this actually belongs to somebody. This was actually got watermark on it, but it's a cool little splatter effect I was able to find. It's just black, but it's not vectored. Again, you want to use this as the backdrop of a t-shirt design. Okay? It actually takes away because it's only doing black and white. Ignore the white. Expand. I'm going to leave it grouped. And now I can do that and actually build a cool design up on top of that. Like, again, by playing around with let's have some fun with this. All right, wants me to create outlines first. Okay, now we can color it. By the way, guys, there are tons of gradient libraries available to us as well, besides just what it gives us here. See? Gradients can be a little bit difficult to work with, but they can give you some pretty cool results. And watch what I can do here. I can even take this, let me offset it. Actually, I'll just copy it, paste. And you can see now for t-shirt or some other kind of printing purposes, how these effects work really cool to kind of break it all up. So obviously this version would be a separate screen than the black version. So that would, you'd almost want to take the black version here. Whoops. This one here, right? All that black would almost want to be merged or united together as one. So that's one screen. And then this would just be a single color value offset a little bit. That would be another screen. Or better yet, let's go ahead and subtract minus. Oh, okay. Yeah, that didn't exactly work because of the advancement of it, but I'd almost want to have where the color would be, I'd almost want that to be blank underneath it, right? No vector. And there is a way I could have done that. So instead of initially doing the unite, I could have done a subtract, but that could get kind of tough when you have an advanced, large, multi-object, shape underneath. But that's some cool stuff, like I say, you can do with that. All right, I'm looking at the time here. I see it's 12.